Hi everybody, today we're talking about the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. And we want to do two things. We want to learn this new terminology, and we also want to understand which ones are logically equivalent. So when we're talking about these four related statements, we're starting with the conditional P implies Q that we often write as if P then Q. If we flip the order of the statements, then we have Q implies P. When we put in negative signs, we call this the inverse. I have not P implies not Q. And it's really important that you understand that this is not the negation of the conditional. It's just a different version of the conditional that happens to include nots. Then our last case is called the contrapositive. It's not Q implies not P. So this is both things. It's backwards, and we threw the negatives in. As a first example, we're going to let P be you are in the military and Q will be you work for the government. If we write our conditional P implies Q, we would have the statement, if you are in the military, then you work for the government. If we flip that around to Q implies P, that says if you work for the government, then you are in the military. Moving on to the inverse, we have if you are not in the military, then you do not work for the government. Then the contrapositive says if you do not work for the government, you are not in the military. So let's take a look at those statements individually. Starting with the conditional, I think we can all agree that if you're in the military, then definitely you work for the government. If we flip that around though and say if you work for the government, then you're in the military, well, that's not necessarily true. There are plenty of people that work for the government, say the president or a senator, but they're not actively in the military. The inverse says if you are not in the military, then you do not work for the government. And again, we have a problem. People like senators and the president aren't in the military, but they still work for the government, so that statement really doesn't make sense. But then our last statement that says if you don't work for the government, that you're not in the military, that clicks. There's no way that you can be in the military if you don't work for the government. Let's get a bigger overview of the conditional, converse, inverse, and contrapositive by making a truth table of the four statements. So we have P implies Q, Q implies P, not P implies not Q, and not Q implies not P. And what I want you to notice is that the truth value for the conditional, 1, 0, 1, 1, is the same as the truth values for the contrapositive, 1, 0, 1, 1. Remember we said when statements have the same truth values in every situation, then they're logically equivalent. The same thing can be said for the converse and the inverse. For the converse, we see 1, 1, 0, 1. For the inverse, we also see 1, 1, 0, 1. This gives us two sets of equivalent statements. The conditional goes with the contrapositive, the converse goes with the inverse. Let's look at a few examples to see how knowing which statements are equivalent will help us as we move forward in the class. We'll start with an easy one. Our statement is, if it is raining, then the ground is wet. We want to know which one is equivalent to the conditional above. Well, remember, the conditional is equivalent to the contrapositive. That means we need to put nots in both the statements, and then we need to flip the order. When you look through your choices of if the ground is wet, then it's raining, I don't see negations. If it's not raining, the ground is not wet, that has negations, but it's in the same order. C says the ground is not wet, then it's not raining. That one looks good. I have two negations in my order flipped. The last one says the ground is wet, then it's not raining. I see one negation, but not two. This shows me C is the right answer. The contrapositive is always logically equivalent to the original conditional. Let's try one more that sounds a little bit more like math. I have if a number is odd, then it is not divisible by 2. Take a look at our choices. We have A, if a number is not odd, then it is divisible by 2. B, if a number is divisible by 2, then it's not odd. C, if a number is not divisible by 2, then it is odd. And D, if a number is divisible by 2, then it is odd. So what I think about is I want the order to switch, which means the 2's coming first, and then I want both of the statements to change by switching up the negations. So I want this statement to start with if a number is divisible by 2. That means I'm looking at either B or D. Then the second part should say it's not odd, which shows me that B is the correct answer. So as a quick summary, remember the conditional P implies Q will be equivalent to the contrapositive not Q implies not P, and the converse Q implies P will be equivalent to the inverse not P implies not Q.